to everyone listening to us. Uh, my pleasure to address all of you to this webinar by Dr. Riti Barua. And to begin with, I do want to thank all of you for taking out time and being present for this wonderful session. And continuing from the tradition that we started last year, if you recollect, when we launched our Vistara Care program, and we had a Vistara Yoga Week, being observed, celebrated last year as well. So continuing with that tradition, we launched the same initiative earlier this week as well. Uh, Purpose is very simple. So I think it's a pure intention of enabling our staff with well-being for themselves and also for their families. It's intention of communicating our care, our support, and equipping you with the right kind of information for managing the same. And when one talks about stress, it's part of everyday life. Each one of us goes through it. Uh, Whenever we are not able to manage something, whatever the irritants, life sometimes I think is too short and beautiful. And so we must make our best effort to remove these irritants. It's good to stretch and have a constructive stretch in our life to stretch our potential, to stretch our abilities. But beyond that, when it leads to any kind of negativity is where we, I think, need uh, to reflect and solve for it. And maybe that's where we are. That's where we are today. So reason for including such a session for as part of our Vistara Care initiative was, of course, the COVID wave 2 and the impact that it has caused. So we thought it was most critical that we include a session like this and this was becoming an ask from some of our staff members as well. And I would urge each one of you to make the best use of this session. It's a custom session for Vistara audience. Please listen, absorb, and most importantly, implement the key learnings which resonate with you. Very, very happy to introduce Dr. Riti Barua, who's a doctoral degree holder in aviation psychology and has spent over 10 years in the field of psychology research, training, and development. She's a human factor specialist and has worked intensively with both civil as well as military aviation research, and has delivered talks in prestigious forums like Annual Conference of Aerospace Medicine India and International Symposium of Aviation Psychology USA, to name a few. Currently, she works with flight crew training and is an integral part of Human Factors Crew Resource Management team. She is also our in-house counselor and psychologist. So very privileged to have Riti with us today. So with that, I will hand it over to Saiba and then to Riti. Yeah.
Thank you, Deepa, for such a warm welcome. Before we start the session, if your friends or any of the fellow colleagues are unable to log in or view the live stream, we suggest that you log in through your phone or check your internet connection. Or maybe you can reach out to anyone in IT department to help you out view the live stream. Now, without much ado, over to you, Rithi.
Thank you, Sahiba, and thank you, Deepa ma'am, for such a warm welcome. And it gives me, it's a privilege actually to speak on a topic which is so pertinent in the current times. So
yeah, I want to object to the word which you just used. So no, yes, no sir and no ma'am in Vistara. So over to you, Riti.
All right, thank you, Deepa. Okay, without further ado, I would like to start my presentation and share my insights in this topic, which is managing stress for healthy life. So the basic objective of this session is threefold. So first, we will look at and try to understand what is traumatic stress. I'm sure most of us pretty much know of what stress is, right? We'll touch upon that. But I would like to specifically focus on what is something which is known as traumatic stress. We will also look into some of the adaptive coping strategies. This is something which is, I mean, there are plenty of which I'm going to offer you today. Whichever you think best suits you and will be helpful, feel free to adopt them and implement them in your daily lifestyles. And finally, the main objective or the aim of today's entire session will be to regain overall well-being. So with that, I would like to start my presentation. So what is stress? Now, if I were to honestly ask some of you, to define stress, some of the most common probably responses would be anything that threats or demands you and can be very, very taxing to both your physical as well as your mental or psychological well-being. So these are some of the common themes or common terms that come up when we ask for definitions of stress, which is rightly true. Okay. So when we talk about stress, it is nothing but the state of physical, which is your biological makeup or your physiological makeup, your diet, sleep patterns, all of that. Your mental, that is your cognitive capacities. Most often it is seen that people are not able to differentiate between what is mental and what is emotional or psychological strain. When you're talking about mental, it is all about your cognitive capacities. Are you capable of making decisions rationally, thinking logically, trying to solve problems, functioning rationally? That is what is mental strain. And emotional strain. How well are you able to deal with these emotions, right? And so when that is the state of stress, when it is imbalance, when there is no good balance between your physical, mental, and emotional aspects, and when these becomes bombarded with all the adverse situations around you or demanding circumstances, that is when we feel stress. To put it in very layman's language, it is nothing but your body trying to just get trying to adjust to the challenging situations around you. Okay, when you encounter any kind of stressful situations, we react physiologically.
Saiba, I think Priti's connection. I'll just call her up and check.
Sure. Ricky, you're not audible.
I think Priti's lost her connection. We can all wait for her to join back.
Sorry for the inconvenience. Let's just wait for another minute or so for Ricky to join back and we'll continue.
Yeah, hello, I'm sorry, I think I got disconnected. Can you all hear me now?
Yes, Ricky,
Yes,
loud
Priti.
and clear.
You can just put up your screen, Priti.
Am I audible? Yeah. All right. I'll continue from where I've left. Yes, I was talking about stress, and yes, you can also say that yeah, there are two types of stress. There's sometimes there's positive stress also, which we call, or psychologists call it eustress, which helps you perform better because there's a lot of adrenaline rush. Let's say, take the example of a runner maybe performing or competing in a run, or someone making a public speech. That can be eustress. It helps you perform. But what we're trying to focus here today is about the de-stress, something which is negative and can be detrimental to your overall functioning. All right. Also, if you have to look at it, these stressors, we call it the stressors, which means anything, any element, any event, any stimulus that adds to your stress levels are stressors. It can be the workload that you have. It can be a juggling between your work and life balance. Maybe you have an ailing parent at home and you still have to juggle between your work hours, working from home, and taking care of your parents. That can be a stressor. Maybe in just traveling to work and there is traffic, you are reaching late. traffic is a stressor. For a small kid, maybe, who has to wake up in the morning to attend an online class, that itself can be a stressor. So for every individual, stressors are different, the intensity is different, and to look at it, the types are also different. It can be internal as well as external. When I say internal, I'm talking about something which is physical in nature, something which is physiological in nature, or something which can be emotional as well. All right. And when you're talking about external, it can be something which is tangible. It is something outside you in the context in which you live. Right. So some of them are listed here. Like I already mentioned, it can be the pressure of time. It can be any kind of conflicts, maybe at home, outside. It can be a stressor again. Now, all I want you all to focus is that to know that anything that poses as a challenge or as a threat to your overall or your normal functioning, which hampers you to function well in normal circumstances, that is a stress. So it is normal. Yeah, almost all of us go through different stressors almost every day. But then knowing at what point we should really put our foot down, or rather, look for ways to cope with these stressors, that is what is important. All right. My main agenda is not to focus on what stress is, but something else, which is traumatic stress. And that is what I want to focus on more in today's session. Now, I'll let you know why I'm so keen on talking about traumatic stress in a slide which comes after this. But before that, I would like you all to know and be aware of what traumatic stress is. Traumatic stress is actually exactly what all of us, I can rightly say, all of us are, feeling or going through or experiencing. So what we are facing currently in the midst of this pandemic or this global pandemic is acute traumatic stress. Now, you may be wondering, why do I say that all of us are, experiencing this, right? Let me tell you that we are all vicariously actually experiencing this. We are vicariously living these experiences because of this global pandemic. How vicariously? We see events, or we get to know about the active cases or death cases through media. We are supporting people, we are supporting our friends, we are supporting our family who are being infected or affected by this pandemic. So we are, if not directly or personally at a very individual level, but we are vicariously living this trauma. Hence, we are all going through this acute traumatic stress. We are directly experiencing this trauma. Most of us, I personally have gone through this. We have become ill, we have been tested positive, we have been isolated because of being positive, we have attended virtual funerals. You are directly at a very individual and personal level. Also, we have gone through this. So hence, we are all going through this acute traumatic stress phase. We are experiencing the plight of close ones. Most of us, we have lost our very own family members, near and dear ones, friends, colleagues, people whom we know. So we are experiencing that as well. We are all experiencing a communal sense of peace. There is, without doubt, mass death happening everywhere because of COVID all across the world. So we are experiencing all of that. And hence, this is how we are vicariously living and at the same time experiencing at individual level. And at the same time, we are facing all of this. Hence, I say that we all are, affected at some level, and we are all going through this acute traumatic stress. And also, although most of us, we are vaccinated, we are coping, which is good, always good. But then still, there is an anticipatory anxiety. There are news, there are talks about, there are alarms about the third wave coming up, right? We are not yet over the grief of, what had happened already. But then we are still anticipating something worse coming up or similar again. And which can be a threat of, loss of life again, or it could be loss of job, etc. So all of this actually can cause, or causes rather, acute traumatic stress. And this is something which is alarming. And this is something which I really want to focus on in today's presentation, because we need to be aware. It's just because somebody has not tested positive or nobody in the immediate family, but you are directly, indirectly being affected. So it is better to take precautions at the right time before it gets worse. Okay. So again, here I would like to, again, reiterating what is in it, why I want to talk about it. I do say that it's a need of the hour. People should be aware of this. People should take appropriate or adapt appropriate coping strategies. But why so? Why we are making this effort to let you all know or be aware of all of this? Let me tell you, research suggests that these traumatic stress reactions, especially during the pandemic, is prevalent everywhere. This is something which I've already mentioned. Almost all of us are going through this. So it is prevalent almost everywhere. And it is detrimental to our overall well-being. Okay, just being healthy at a physical level will not suffice. We have to take a more holistic approach, and that's what we are going to look at to achieve well-being. So hence it is important to identify the traumatic stress reactions so that you can cope with them effectively. Only when someone is aware that there's something like this that can happen or is happening, you will be able to identify what is happening or the reactions associated with it so that you can actually cope with them effectively. And you become more resilient. You can bounce back. You can still try and flourish amidst this, bad times. And also, and considering, we are a part of this aviation industry, which is a very, very safety critical industry. We need to understand and address this part because it can help you mitigate the human factor risks which are associated with acute traumatic stress. So that is the main reason or rationale behind why I would like to discuss specifically acute traumatic stress. Okay. Having said that, like I already said, and research also shows that it is important to understand the traumatic reactions. We have understood that, yes, okay, we are going through this, but what are the signs and symptoms? What should I really take care or control or, consider? So here are some of the most common stress reactions. And I can, maybe you all will agree with me when I say that most of us have gone through these phases. And if so, we need to think and reflect at what point do I really take some safety precautions or some coping, adapt some coping strategies so that my well-being doesn't dampen. Okay. So one of such thing is the feeling of hopelessness and helplessness. I'm pretty sure most of us, especially during this time of the pandemic, we have felt this at some point in time. For some individual, it can be specific to, can be just momentary. For some, we are still going through this phase. Helpless, that, you still have the resource, let's say you still have the resource of money, but still you were not able to help someone's life, right? Or hopeless, you know that no matter what you do, you cannot save the individual because this person is already affected and damage has been done. So it brings a sense of helplessness and hopelessness within, right? Moving on, there can be feelings of shock and numbness. Shock maybe when one tested positive.
Priti, I think there is some network issue again at your end.
I'll collect.
Okay, thank you.
Riti is joining back, Saiba.
Thank you, Anisha.
Requesting all to stay connected. Riti is just joining back.
Yeah, Sahiba, am I audible still?
Yes, yes, Anish. Yes, Ritik.
Okay. I'll. So I was talking about feeling of shock or numbness. So it could be shock when you get the news of the death of someone close to you, or feeling numb that you have lost someone, or even if it is not lost, looking at what's really happening around you can bring you this feeling of can give you this feeling of shock and numbness. I'm sure pretty much almost all of you have at least experienced this once during in this last 1.5 years of this pandemic. Feeling of
Ritik,
irritability and anger.
your screen, we cannot see your screen.
Okay. I'm sorry for that.
It's visible now. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. So feeling of irritability and anger again, because of, let's say, isolation, right? Or because, I mean, we are fortunate that we still have a job. There are a lot of our friends and family members who have lost their jobs. So they do feel, insecure. They're irritable, that they cannot help the situation. So we are flooded with a lot of emotions like irritability and anger. Vulnerability and unsafe is another common stress reaction. Most of us are, in fact, in our company itself, we have our, and kudos to them, we have all the frontline workers who have been working day in and day out since the start of, doing all emergency operations, flying, and they are the most vulnerable as well because they come in contact with a lot of people from flying from around the country or across the world. So they might also feel vulnerable and unsafe all the time working in such an environment. And they also come back home. And when they come back home, they may have elderly parents, they may have other children, who can be also vulnerable if at all they are carrying this. So they do feel these, they do experience these kind of emotions or stress reactions. There is a category of people who are hypervigilant as well. I personally know of someone who has not stepped out in this last 1.5 year. It is good for them for sure. They are safe. They are still continuing with their work. But as long as they are taking care of their overall well-being inside the house, right? So being hypervigilant at all times, is it a good thing? Questionable again, right? Because it is nothing but a stressor for you. Withdrawal and isolation, no matter whether you're directly affected or not, a lot of us, a lot of the individuals, youngsters, teenagers, this is the age for them to actually go out. It builds there in a psychological language, if I have to say, this year they actually builds their self-esteem, their image and things like that. So they have been
I will just check it.
We are extremely sorry for this, but I believe there is some network issue at Riti's end due to the monsoon season. So she's back in her hometown, and we'll just check with her and we'll get back.
Riti is joining back. Guys, Riti is in Guwahati and she's facing some network issues. So please bear with us. She's joining back.
Thank you, Anisha.
Am I audible?
Yes.
I apologize. I'm in my hometown, Guwahati, and I think I'm facing a lot of network issues. All right, I'll continue from where I've left. So yes, withdrawal and isolation is again a common stress reaction, which is seen from a lot of people because of everything that is happening. It's depressing people. They are anxious. They are depressed for whatever is happening around them, and they are getting shrunk in their own cocoon, and people have stopped reaching out to even their own family members. So that is something of concern. Job insecurity, like I've already mentioned, there's an anticipatory insecurity of insecurity about if somebody loses a job, or because a lot of people are actually experiencing a lot of financial strain during this time. And this is something which probably is something new for most of you. This is something, and what I want to stress on this is something called emotional labor. Emotional labor is, again, a psychological state wherein, and it is very much prevalent, especially at work. Like, for instance, the example or the picture that I've put here actually depicts a doctor. Now, and that is one population who who has been experiencing this at a very high level, emotional labor. What it is basically when you have to pretend to and act in a certain way because your job demands that out of you. Okay, so let's say there is a person or there's a patient who is probably dying. The situation is so bad, the condition is so bad. The doctor knows that no matter what, it is getting worse. And you know how this whole COVID situation is. Somebody who is talking this moment may not, is losing life the next minute. It is as unpredictable as it sounds. So these doctors, how do they act or how do they interact with the patient? They still have to look confident. They still have to boost the morale of the patients. So that takes a lot from the part of the doctor as well. They go through these psychological strains, which is called emotional labor. Now, if I have to explain emotional labor, keeping the aviation into perspective, our cabin crew, to a large extent, they do experience this. Let's say there is a cabin crew who must have had a very terrible time at home, but when she is or he is on board performing her duties, it is the requirement of the job to put on a smile and greet the passengers and meet the expectations of the job. So there is always an incongruency. There is a dissonance with what the person is actually feeling and what the person is actually showcasing. So when that happens, it psychologically affects that individual. Exactly, that is happening with doctors. It is also happening in our families as well. When you know the person is the health condition is getting worse, you still have to boost their morale. You still have to encourage that person to live. So you are also experiencing emotional labor at the same time. We need to keep in mind that first thing is that all of these may lead to the exacerbation of the existing mental health concerns. And all of you try to think if you all have gone through these stages. Okay, if you have experienced at least one or two, definitely it means that you have experienced this acute traumatic stress. But to what level were you able to smartly and we are we should also keep in mind that we are human beings, and we can sustain the stress and cope with it for some time, but it can deplete also. Right, so your coping capacity is just like an engine or the air wings. It can handle the pressure to some extent, but it can deplete as well. So in order to know when is the last time to reach out to take appropriate measures, that is something that you need to keep a check on. Now, at this point, I want all of you all to reflect, since now you know what acute traumatic stress is. Now you know what are the most common acute traumatic stress reactions are, and we have experienced all of them. Just reflect and think, how are you feeling? And which level are you? Now, I'm calling it level, but these are not exactly levels. But where would you place yourself on this picture which is shown? There's no, it's not a sequence or anything. You might say that there might be people who think that, it cannot occur to them. I'll take care of it. It can happen to somebody else. It'll go away. I can just ignore it. It's just for time being, I can ignore it. You are still in the denial stage. Is it healthy? Well, it's not. It is not healthy to think that way, right? Because superficially, again, you're somewhere trying to hide those feelings. You're not addressing them. There may be some who might still be very anxious. And now, even knowing after this, you might be more anxious that, thinking that, yes, I have experienced emotional labor. Yes, I have experienced the feeling of helplessness and hopelessness. Is it going to affect me? Is it going to, affect me negatively? That can be, and trying to start, you might start questioning yourself, or you have already started questioning yourself that, can I cope with these changes? Well, you're in the state of anxiety. You can have a lot of emotions running in as well. It can be a flood, right, of emotions running, feeling of anger, irritability, frustration, not being able to reach out or not being able to help somebody. That can also happen. You can also fear the future. You don't know what is, because this was unprecedented. Nobody knew about it. We still don't know what's coming up next. So you can feel the fear, and think, how will it affect me and mine? We can still be in that stage. But let me tell you, no matter wherever you place yourself, everything is normal. It's because we are human beings, we are bound to go through this, phases, or phase also won't be a right word, but in this state, okay? Either you can deny, you can have different emotions running in you, but the smartest way to tackle the situation lies in how well you accept it. Okay, this is something, a key takeaway, and I want you all to think about it and really take back this message that no matter what, whether you are denying the reality, whether you are anxious about what's happening, whether you're fearing the future, whether you're flooded with a lot of emotions, all of that, it is natural. We are human beings first, irrespective of your cultural background, your professional background, irrespective of all of that, your social status, we are human beings first. Remember that, okay? And feeling, going through these states make you human, all right? So, but then we have to think of how do we manage this. We cannot stay in that state, right? We have to be resilient. We have to bounce back. We have to flourish. And in order to do that, the first thing you need to do is accept the reality. You have to come to terms to the fact that, yes, it has happened, and this is what I am feeling. Yes, I am anxious. Okay. The moment you are able to do that, you can actually walk towards the path towards progress or growth. Okay. So you will realize that there are ample number of things around you which you can really focus on and work upon, so that you can still be resilient and do something about yourself, not just yourself, but about for people around you. That's the path towards your growth. Now, I would label this growth into what instead of calling it growth, I'll call well-being henceforth. When I say well-being, and that is where we want to progress, first accepting all the different states. Only once you accept, you can actually look at all the alternatives, all the options that are available to you, and really progress towards growth, which is nothing but your overall well-being. Now, when we ask about well-being, most people talk about mental well-being alone, being mentally healthy. But here, I'm talking about your overall well-being. And well-being, according to World Health Organization, they define it as a state of complete physical, mental, and social well-being, and not merely the absence of any disease or infirmity. Just because one is not COVID positive or does not have any kind of illness does not necessarily mean that the person has, has achieved the state of well-being. All right, we have to look at it holistically. A holistic approach is what is needed, and that is what we want to focus on. So at the center, you have yourself, that's me. But how do you take care of yourself? By looking at the three pillars: your mind, body, and your social uh, situations or the social context. So even we, in the domain of psychology, we follow this model, which is called the biopsychosocial model, which looks at well-being holistically. And they say that these three elements, the biological, the psychological, and social elements, are like the three legs of a stool. Okay, just like if one leg is broken, you cannot sit on the stool. It's as simple as that. Okay, so if you want to attain well-being, you have to give equal weightage to all the three elements. Somebody, let's take the example here, a very random, a very common example. Maybe there's somebody who's a fitness freak and has healthy diet. But if you have to look at his or her psychological makeup, is he able to control his emotions well? Or, or is he someone who just isolates himself or herself, does not really have any social connections? What about his well-being? Definitely, it is not a healthy well-being, right? The moment you have all of them put together, and there might be somebody, let's say there's someone who is always outgoing, meets a lot of people, has a lot of friends and things like that. But when it comes to the biological side of it, what about the diet? What about the physical activity? If it is very unhealthy, always seek comfort food, things like that, again, then it is directly, again, it's going to affect their well-being. So like I already mentioned, it works interdependently. It is not independent of each other. So if one wants to attain well-being amidst all these stressors, we have to give importance to all these three elements equally. All right. Only when there is when they work together, you can achieve the state of well-being. Here, I want to point out one more thing, which, and especially because it is, we are in this aviation industry, and like I already said, it's a very safety critical industry. So our well-being is not just restricted or influences the nature and quality of our relationships with others. It's not just restricted with the way you deal with your family, your friends, your colleagues, but it also impacts directly on your human performance, the way you perform both at work as well as at home. Okay, some of the human factor elements, we are still working. Consider ourselves. What about our awareness levels? Okay, if we are still thinking about, or if we are still bombarded by all the stressors or all the traumatic stress reactions or the stressors, what happens to our awareness level?
Let's all wait for Rithi to join back.
Skills will be intact. Then also about your workload management. So all of this will be taken care of only when you adopt a very healthy well-being strategies. So moving on to some of the very practical coping strategies I have listed. These are very practical and which almost all of us can actually use.
Rithi, we're losing your voice in between. We'll all wait for Rithi to join back. Uh, yeah, Rithi, I'll ask
Yes.
Saiba to put up the
Present.
screen.
Right, right. Yes, please. Yeah, can you go to slide number 10, Saiba?
Saiba, can you please put it on the full screen mode?
Yes.
Yeah. The next slide, please. Yeah, just hold on. What I'm going to present now is some of the coping strategies, again, from using the perspective of the biopsychosocial framework. Like I said, if you have to achieve well-being, or if you have to manage your stress and try to work towards the path of progress, not enough to just look at one aspect of it, not just biological aspect or psychological, psychosocial aspect. You have to look at it holistically. A holistic approach will help you. So I'm presenting to you all some of the coping strategies which are very practical in nature, and again, keeping the biopsychosocial framework in mind. So I've used the biopsychosocial framework or perspective to explain to present this. So one of the first very important coping strategy is about rest and sleep. So having a bedtime routine is advice. Make it a habit. For some people who have flexible sleeping time, there it can be challenging to some extent, but before going to sleep, maybe just have a cup of non-caffeinated drink, a tea, a herbal tea. Green tea is helpful, chamomile tea is helpful. There are different types of tea, rosemary tea. All these, what they do is they calm your nerves. Okay. And also, not just that, it helps you perform better during the daytime. So you need something like that, which can induce it and function well the next day. The next point here is create a flexible exercise regime. Exercise, start walking, start small little mat exercises. All of any kind of exercise, actually, what it does, it releases endorphins, again, a hormone which is a feel good hormone, and which is something that you need in current times, because it elevates mood. It changes your moods from negative to positive. It's a feel good hormone. So exercise of any nature is very, very effective. And also it maybe if you do not have time, a 15 minutes high intensity workout can really help you. All right. But if you don't want to indulge in some high intensity workout because of your it can be comorbidity, or maybe you're not so keen on doing such kind of an exercise, maybe just a walk or walking up and down the staircase can really help you and take care of that. But one thing I want to mention here is, a lot of time people misunderstand this and think that exercise of any nature is fine and any time is fine. Let me tell you, exercise, especially high intensity workout, just before going to sleep is not something which is recommended. If you want to do any kind of exercise right before you go to sleep, do a very low intensity workout. Okay, which again, in a way, will calm down your nerves, not stimulate them. Okay, because a high intensity workout, 1 hour of gymming or 1 hour of exercise can it releases all the adrenaline, and you will not have a good quality sleep. So keep that in mind. So try to make a good and a flexible exercise regime, so that whenever you have a flexi time routine, you can still adjust and fit this in your schedule. Next point. Plan a strict and healthy diet and meal times. Of course, avoid emotional eating. We are all going through an emotional phase. We do binge eat a lot, especially when when one is very emotional, because it's more like comfort food. It gives you the happy high. It gives you the happy feeling. But let me tell you, you may feel less burden when you indulge in emotional eating, but that is very temporary. The after effects are detrimental. So avoid doing that. That goes that is the same with alcohol and drugs. It can give you the happy high for only that time limit, but post that, the research has shown that that the rates of anxiety levels and even depression are more post the effect, when the effect subsides. So avoid indulging in such diets, and incorporate good nutrition in your food. Foods which is very high in complex carbohydrates. It could be anything as simple as brown rice. Substitute white rice with brown rice, which is high in complex carbohydrates. Have more whole grain cereals, right? So all these kind of foods, maybe any different fruits and vegetables. What they do is they help the brain to create more of serotonin, which again is helpful and also curbs stress. Okay. Try to incorporate those kind of food in your diet, which can really help you manage stress. Next. Maintain a good hygiene. I mean, time and again, it's everywhere. And I think we have to be extra cautious, not just think about ourselves, but also people around us. That be cautious and of the safety protocols and all times, and maintain good hygiene at all times. We have to think of everybody, not just ourselves now. Next. Practice mindfulness. Yes, considering this as a yoga week, we know and research has shown how yoga has become an effective strategy to curb stress. Now, let me tell you, when practicing yoga, our body secretes a neurotransmitter GABA, gamma-aminobutyric acid. Again, that also calms down our nerve activities. So that also helps you. That also helps calming your body, calming your mind. So when that happens, when somebody is stressed, indulge yourself or exercise do some breathing exercises. What will happen is GABA, it is secreted. And what actually happens is when somebody is stressed, you are not able to make rational decision. Your blood actually does not flow in your executive memory or the frontal part of the brain. You actually pump in more blood so that you can make rational and logical thoughts. And that can happen really if somebody practices effective techniques like yoga. And there is something called mindfulness meditation as well. Mindfulness meditation has been incorporated by American Psychological Association as one of the psychotherapy measures, because it also has been seen that it calms down anxiety and depression. So there are a lot of forums available. There are trainings happening in this week, which is teaching a lot of yoga techniques. Try to incorporate all of them in your, and make it as a lifestyle. Do it. It will barely take 10 to 15 minutes if you're doing the initial bit, but it has a lot of beneficial effect. Next slide. Psychological. Now, looking at the psychological perspective, how do we manage our mind? I've already mentioned, and I'm reiterating, that acceptance is the key. Nothing will work out unless you accept that we are human beings first. You may think, or one may think, that he or she is capable enough to handle all kinds of stressors. We are human beings. We will at some points fail. At that time, you need to know how to really be smart and take up the effective tools that are available to you. So accept that and try to make the progress. Next. Number 2 is recognize and acknowledge your feelings. It is very hard for most of the people to do this. These are some of the techniques which we also use in psychotherapy sessions. where we encourage people to maintain a well-being journal. Just take up a piece of paper or a diary and write down your feelings, your thoughts. Try to track them. See what are the trigger factors. In what circumstances you really probably feel frustrated. List them down. Or maybe what are the trigger points which make you upset or sad. Try to track them. So once you're able to do that, you will be able to pick up appropriate coping strategies based on the trigger points. So journaling the feelings, recognizing and acknowledging them is also something very important. It helps you train to keep your mind calm. Next. Third is disclose yourself and your feelings. This has again been seen that a lot of people think, talking about emotions and feelings is a sign of weakness. Let me tell you, it is not the sign of weakness. It is a sign that you are a human being. You are human. Only human beings do have emotions. They have feelings as well. And if you have that power, try to utilize it, okay, to flourish. Now, disclosing yourself to someone may not be easy for many of us, right? And it is not, there's a misconception that only introvert people do not disclose themselves. There are a lot of extroverts who are out there, out loud, talking and all that. It becomes very uncomfortable for them to confine in someone when it comes to, talking about very sensitive issues. You can, but that is really going to help once you open up with someone. It can be your friend, it can be a colleague, it can be any support groups which are available. Talk to them, because it is going to take away a lot of baggage from your chest. Try it out, it really helps again. Next. Practice empty chair technique. Now, this will help in reflecting on how you feel about life and plan way forward. Again, empty chair technique is again a psychotherapeutic. It is Gestalt therapy technique, wherein we encourage people to sit with an empty chair and pretend that you are actually talking to someone who's seated there and who's listening to you, objectively. This can really help you plan the way forward. So you can try that as well. And last but not the least, when it comes to your emotional well-being, your emotional or psychological well-being, remember this, that you need to respect and validate others' feelings. If somebody is talking to you, sharing their feelings, empathize with them, because like it's already mentioned, everybody is fighting their own battles, and you never know how you really can be a big wound to them, or you can be a very big help for them. So always validate. If they are sharing something, validate their feelings. So that is how you have to be empathetic. You have to be a little emotionally intelligent, understand not just your own feelings, but also try to understand the other person's feelings so that you can really share the load. Next. Last but not least, looking at the social aspect, how do we really manage relationships? These relationships can be at work, it can be, relationships at home, anywhere. So make it a priority, especially in this current time, to stay in touch with your family, with your friends and colleagues. You never know, again, who really needs that help, who really needs that phone call. Right? So make it a point. It'll barely take 5 minutes of your time to maybe just make a phone call. So it's not going to just help you, it can help the other individual as well. Next. Always talk to your partner, your children, your friends, your colleagues, and offer consistent emotional support and understanding. Like I already mentioned, and I'm reiterating, being emotional about a certain event, being emotional about anything around you does not make you weak, it makes you human. So try to understand and acknowledge that, and always talk to people around you. Reach out to your children who also are facing a lot of emotional turmoil during this phase. So always give them the consistent support that they require. Treat the people with respect and dignity and listen to them without being judgmental. A non-biased approach is going to help everyone. So treat them with respect, with dignity. Many people have lost a lot from their lives during this time. So, but they still do, deserve to be respected with full dignity. And so, listen without any judgments. Encourage self-help and other support strategies. So I have listed, like I already mentioned, I've listed different types of coping strategies. Please use whichever you think is practical for you, and also encourage, share these with your near and dear ones. Encourage self-help. These are nothing, if you incorporate them, it becomes a self-help mechanisms of addressing stress. Also, there are a lot of support groups available. Join them, volunteer to be part of them, and encourage this. And always, again, empathy works, okay? So try to put yourself in someone else's shoes and practice empathy. Always listen, always treat somebody with respect, and try to understand other person's point of view, especially in current circumstances. So those were the different coping strategies, adaptive coping strategies. Again, why adaptive? Because this is definitely, it is, all of these are scientifically based. There is no subjectivity involved in any of these coping strategies. So it is definitely effective, and it is, and it is not, something which is detrimental. So please incorporate them in your daily routines and make it like a normal lifestyle. So the final key takeaway of this entire session is 3 things which all of you all, I would encourage, or I would really want you all to remember or take away, is that all of you all should be really aware of these early signs of traumatic stress. We have discussed a few, the most common ones. So understand all of them. Try to see if you have been affected by all of these. Try to see if the people around you are affected by these. And if so, you now have a toolkit of, of managing techniques, of stress management techniques. So use them. But when you use them, adopt a very holistic approach in doing that. Just taking care of one aspect of your well-being will not suffice. A holistic approach is what is needed to manage stress. And then finally, it is all about acceptance. It is accepting that we are all humans. It is natural to feel the way we are all are feeling, but we need to flourish. We have to flourish. We have to let the human mankind flourish. So we have to work towards that. And to do that, we have to start by accepting it and then working towards managing it. So with that, I'm just sharing 2 information over here. One is my email ID and phone number. So if there is anyone who needs or who wants to seek professional help and assistance and wants a one-on-one free counseling session, and those are my contact details. And and everything will be kept confidential. Nothing is going to be shared with the management or any teams. So if there is any requirement, please feel free to reach out to me. And also there is another helpline number which I have provided over here of NIMHANS. So you can use that as well. Remember, Sahiba, next. We are all in this together and we will get through this together. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rithi. Indeed, that was very, very insightful. And I hope, that we will take home a lot. We will now know how to cope up with stress, which is inevitable in today's time. I really appreciate that you've given up such practical and very, very handy tips to take along and to use them in our day-to-day lives. Thank you so much for that. Now, quickly, let us move on to the questions that has been shared by our employees. In the interest of time, we will only pick up 3 to 4 questions and not more than that. We have got a lot of questions. Most of them were covered in the slides, in the presentation that you've just shown, in the explanation that you've given. And couple of questions were very yoga related, which will be answered offline. So to start with, the first question, which is combined, which is a combination of 3 to 4 questions, because a lot of people have asked this question: how to manage stress, because of the shift duties, abnormal sleeping patterns, especially in aviation, abnormal sleeping patterns, eating patterns. How do our employees manage stress during that time? That this is a very, very common question that was asked by a lot of people. So yes, over to you.
Right. Managing stress, especially when you have a flexible routine, can be very, very challenging indeed. Most of the techniques I have already mentioned in today's presentation, which includes, about having healthy diet, all of that. But one specific thing which I want to point out is sleep. Sleep can really help, take care of this situation. The flexible in this bargain where you have a flexible work hours, catching upon the sleep becomes a very important thing for your overall and normal healthy functioning. So ideally, for any human being to optimally perform, you need 7 to 8 hours of proper sleep. So try to track the way your sleep patterns are. Okay, so if you see that you're losing in a 24 hours cycle, if you're losing on this optimum level of sleep, okay, basically there's a formula. All right, so if 7 to 8 hours is the optimum level, if you are just getting, let's say, 5 hours of sleep, that means still you are less of 3 hours sleep. Okay, so keep that in mind. And also remember, another formula is that if you sleep for 1 hour, it can keep a human being awake for the next 2 hours. Keeping these two formulas in mind, I would suggest that you plan your day accordingly. If you are short of 3 hours of sleep, try to plan it over weekends maybe, or during early morning hours, taking some extra naps so that you can be awake for the during your work hours. Right? So catching up on the sleep debt is very, very important, because your sleep really helps you flush out toxins and also help the body recuperate with all the stressors around.
Thank you. I hope people who had asked this question, it will help them a lot. The next question is how to control mind from wandering.
How to control mind from wandering? Yes, most of us, it happens to all of us, right? Primarily, why it happens is two things. Sometimes it can be internal again. Why internal is that? Let's say I am writing something, but my mind ideally should be focused on what I'm writing, but it switches. Why is that happening? Because I'm not finding this activity challenging or rewarding enough. So that is more to do with your internal, how you really, interpret that situation. And secondly, it can also happen because of some external stimulus, maybe a distraction. There's something more rewarding outside than what you are doing. One thing again, here actually, or to be honest, understanding how your brain functions really can be very important, because we need to understand that when we are actively engaged in something, there's a part in the brain which is called the default part of the brain, which is very inactive. So whenever these things happen, when you're getting distracted or when your brain wanders, it is actually when your default part of the brain is working. So if you again track and try to journal it, maybe, try to see under what circumstances your default part of the brain, default mode switches on, or default mode of the brain switches on. You will consciously make an attempt to bring it back to the current situation and make your working memory, stimulate or work, or your working part of the brain work. So every time, I would suggest is every time this happens, just be aware that it's not a useless part of the brain, but something which is very dormant otherwise, that is activated, and you don't want that. You want to be active and you want to really work and let your executive functions work. So at the moment, because you're aware now, you will naturally bring your attention from there to what you are actually doing. So something like that, and also that can be done, and also practice mindfulness based yoga or breathing exercises. That really helps calm your mind as well. And you can really control, your thoughts which are wandering around to the present here and now point.
Okay. Okay. Thank you so much. The next question I'll quickly take up, which is one of my favorite questions, and I'm sure a lot of people get this, which we popularly call it as Monday blues. So, how to be stress free on a Monday morning is the question that is asked by one of our employees.
Okay, I'll again give very, very practical tips, which probably I must have, which I have actually explained or spoken about. Just get enough sleep. Get enough sleep before you go for your Monday, go to work on Monday. That 8 hours of sleep on a Sunday is very, very important so that you function well the next day. Secondly, limit the consumption of alcohol and caffeine. The caffeine alcohol intake should be very less because they both trigger anxiety and panic after you stop consuming it. Okay, so the intake of caffeine and alcohol should be limited, before you go for work. Also, eating healthy, again, which will secrete a lot of, we will keep a serotonin balance in your body, and having a lot of complex carbohydrates. All of these are simple tips which, if you can inculcate in your everyday routines, will be really helpful.
Riti, this is I think maybe this is not one of the questions asked by our employees, but since you've spoken about comfort food, you've spoken about less caffeine intake, you've spoken about taking teas like chamomile tea and mint tea, green tea. So I think I have noticed in office, I'm sure you have also, that a lot of people take coffee and tea, during work, like during their breaks and during work. So what do you suggest? Is intake of coffee and tea should be minimal, or we should only take tea, or should it only be green tea? What do you
Right.
suggest? Yes.
Right. Taking coffee during workouts, I think we all do. But then keeping it to a minimum and restricting, based on one's own capacity is very important. And also the time of the day is very important. So if somebody is very sleepy post lunch, you have to still finish your work. You need some stimulants in your body, and that's why we grab a cup of coffee. Then, so which makes us awake. That you will be awake, and it will give you the boost, to work and perform energetically. But you need to keep in mind that keep it to a minimal, because when you overdo it, you will have difficulty in falling asleep at night, which again affects your circadian rhythm, and the entire circle goes like that. So keep it to a minimum. Maybe somebody who's takes more of coffee can switch to some soothing non-caffeinated drinks like green tea and all of that.
Sure, sure. I think that is very, very helpful. For me, for sure, this is very, very helpful. I'm sure for the rest of us as well. Then we have, I think, one last question, which is, what is the best time of the day for yoga, or is it okay to do yoga at night?
Right. So again, it has been seen, and there is research evidence also, that yoga, when you perform early in the morning and early evenings, are beneficial. Okay, it helps to make your muscles more flexible and things like that. So those timings are ideal. But then you will get incredible benefits if you perform yoga at night also. But then, provided you make it, or do yoga of less intensity, and not for too long, because less intensity yoga exercises can also help calm your nerves and can induce sleep, so which is beneficial. So yeah, so you can definitely do yoga, but you don't do very high intensity yoga stretching or things like that, which again can be more like a stimulant and you don't fall asleep.
Yeah,
Do something which is of low intensity.
Yeah, you've already, I think, mentioned it in your presentation also
Yes,
about
yes, yes.
exercising before you sleep. Yeah.
Right.
So I think that's about it from my side. Thank you, Riti. Thank you so much for your valuable time and such an insightful session. It
Thank you
has
so much.
personally helped me a lot, and I'm sure everyone from the audience will take home a lot of learning and will implement this in their day-to-day life. Everyone, always remember, no matter whatever is our emotional state, whether we are fearful or in denial, it is okay. And acceptance for your state is just okay. As Rithi rightly mentioned, it is all about acceptance. Right, Rithi? Thank
Yes.
you. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone, for your time. Thank you. And I will be stopping the live streaming now. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Rithi.
Thank you, Anisha.
Thank you, Anisha. Thank you for your time.
Thanks, everyone. I have also stopped the recording, or is it still recording?
It is still